I quit caffeine 3 months ago, and it was one of the best decisions I ever made. And it's probably not for the reason that you're thinking. It's not for high energy, for not being addicted or dependent on a substance, but it's for the fact that caffeine masks who you truly are. I'll explain in this video. For background, my name is Kabir, and 90 days ago, I quit caffeine. And I've been drinking coffee ever since I was in 8th grade. And ever since I was a little kid, I would be drinking Coke with every meal or every family vacation. So I guess you can say that I've been using caffeine ever since I was a little kid. And I decided to quit because I felt like caffeine was starting to backfire on me rather than provide me any benefits in my day to day life. Just to get up and start working, I would need at least 1 cup of coffee. And by the afternoon, I would be at least 2 or 3 cups of coffee deep and feeling just as tired as I was when I woke up. And I knew that I needed a change if I wanted to get my energy back and start feeling normal again. Caffeine, even though it felt so good and tasted so good to me at least, it kept me in a flight or fight response. And I'll explain this a little bit later, but instead of slowing down in my life and taking time to think about what I really like to do, I was so focused on getting to the next email in my inbox or responding to that team message or getting back to that task I was doing. Or, conversely, maybe it was clicking to the next YouTube video that I wanted to watch or going to that next Instagram reel or TikTok video. It was constantly just moving one step at a time, like one step forward, keep going on, keep being productive, keep doing something. And something that I really learned in these last 90 days quitting is that caffeine really isn't conducive to living a slow and a thoughtful kind of life. It's very rewarding if you are in a very hustle and bustle type of situation where you're basically just trying to go from one step to the next. Caffeine, even though it felt so good, kept me in a flight or fight response. Instead of taking the time to be slow, think through my day, be present in the moment, I would be more concerned about answering that team's message, getting back to that email immediately, going back to the task that I was doing so I don't miss any moment in time. And I'm sure, I don't know if you've ever heard of caffeine spoke that way, if you've watched this, but I think that's really, really helpful for me to think about it in terms of caffeine putting me in a flight or fight response. And even if I wasn't doing work, maybe that would take a different form in terms of looking for the next YouTube video to click on, even after I just started watching the one that I'm watching, or scrolling to that next Instagram reel, or getting to the next TikTok video. And one of my key takeaways over the last 3 months was that caffeine really isn't conducive to living a slow and present life, but it's very rewarding if you're trying to be as quick and efficient as possible and just get from one task to the next. But for me, I wanted to maybe take a step back from the hustle and bustle and kind of get back to that slow life, which I feel like a lot of people crave in our current culture. In my opinion, the fact that caffeine creates and promotes this hustle and bustle culture is actually the fact that it's so popular and it's so pushed in today's culture. We live in a very capitalistic world where, if you're an employee or if you're an employer, I should say, and you want your employees to work 8-hour shifts, 10-hour shifts, 12-hour shifts, you know that they're going to be able to get that done if they get their, daily caffeine intake. And in fact, it's actually something to look forward to during the day. I mean, there's a reason that almost every office has a coffee machine or tea that's available for free for the employees. It's so that you're locked in for that 8-hour day, you're able to get that task done, and once you get that done, you'll be worried or thinking about how do I get to that next thing. You'll be in that flight or fight mode that I just alluded to in terms of how do I get my next task done? What's the next steps for this? How do I do this and that? Instead of being slow and being present and really thinking about what you're doing. You're going to be more focused on just producing output. And in theory, that kind of sounds great. I mean, who wouldn't want to be quick and efficient and find an easier way to go about working in 8-hour shift? But in my opinion, there are kind of consequences that come with being in this mind space of having to do everything quickly and efficiently, especially when you get out of work and go into your personal life and your social life. And that's not even to mention the consequences that come if you miss even one day of coffee if you're a daily coffee drinker. When I quit caffeine, I had physical withdrawal symptoms for more than a week, and for months I would have these mental and emotional withdrawal symptoms, which I don't really hear getting talked about a lot. Even after I got through the headaches and the feeling of, being so tired when you're awake that you're basically sleepwalking through life, which was like maybe the first week or two, I would have these random emotional withdrawal symptoms where I would randomly, have no motivation to get up and do the things that I would usually be super amped up and ready to go about doing in a day. And sometimes I would also just get super irritable at the most random things that never would have happened while I was on caffeine, or, if I never had caffeine in the first place. It's not really my nature. So that was really weird. And I knew, those were just symptoms of my brain recalibrating from being on a stimulant every day. And, it was kind of a brutal withdrawal timeline, and it was a lot longer than I expected. I was kind of expecting the physical withdrawal symptoms, but I wasn't expecting to feel mental and emotional withdrawal symptoms. But, I mean, what do you really expect when you use a stimulant for every single day for years and then you just stop out of the blue? In our society, I feel like people will admit that if you don't have coffee for a couple of days, you're going to start to get headaches and not feel the best. But at the same time, I don't hear a lot of people talk about the fact that there are, emotional and mental withdrawal symptoms that happen if you don't drink caffeine even after you haven't had any in months. And I also don't hear people talk about the fact that, caffeine is a really potent stimulant, and at its simplest essence, it's a drug just like any other drug. And after watching this video, if you decide that you still want to keep drinking coffee or your caffeine drink of choice every day, I totally respect and support that decision. But in my opinion, if you keep drinking caffeine every day, you won't see the best benefit of quitting caffeine, which I honestly hear nobody ever talk about. I always hear, about energy, about not being addicted to a substance, but I feel like nobody ever talks about the fact that after you quit caffeine, you'll start to rediscover your passions and what gives you energy naturally. And this benefit that I'm talking about rediscovering your passions and being able to get energy naturally from the things that you really love and enjoy to do, is really the whole motivation behind this video. I feel like when I was in caffeine, as I mentioned, I was in that flight or fight mode where, the things that would give me energy were completing a task and moving on to the next thing. I really wasn't thinking about whether, I enjoyed what I was doing, if this was something that I was passionate about. But now, after quitting caffeine, that's the thing that I'm really focused on, and that's what I kind of lock into a lot more than the mundane tasks that would feel good when I was caffeinated. I would be so focused on getting through my to-do list, making sure that I dot every I and cross every T when I'm doing a project or working on something for work or in my personal life, Whereas now I kind of realized that I was just doing a lot of that to distract myself. It felt good in the moment when I was caffeinated and stimulated to feel like I was being productive and effective and, using my time really well. But I wasn't really thinking about what I was actually doing with that time. And I think without quitting caffeine, I never would have started this YouTube channel, which is something that I honestly wanted to do for a really long time, but I never really knew what to talk about. So I feel like, it was really perfect that I quit caffeine 90 days ago, and I kind of rediscovered an interest in making YouTube videos because I'm constantly on YouTube watching, the most random stuff. So I figured, if I watch all these different creators that are making YouTube videos weekly or monthly or daily, what's stopping me from doing that? And even though, it might seem like video creation and doing this is something that, might benefit from drinking a lot of coffee, I feel like I come off a lot more passionate about this topic than I would have if I was drinking caffeine. And the fact that I'm not drinking caffeine is the reason that why I'm making these videos, because I wouldn't have anything to talk about if I didn't have any experience with quitting caffeine. So, that's just one example of, something that I've been super energized to do ever since I quit drinking coffee. And I'm sure I'm going to rediscover more. But overall, it just feels really good to do what you're passionate about when you're not drinking caffeine. Because I feel like when I would drink caffeine, I would kind of trick myself and not really have the confidence to go on camera and post a video or really talk about the things that I was interested in, because I felt like my passions were, getting this thing done and this thing done. And that's what I was really most proud of myself for, the fact that I was a productive and efficient person. But in reality, I'm a lot more than just a productive and efficient person. But it kind of took getting out of that stimulated mindset of feeling good and getting validation from doing one thing after the next to really kind of realize that in my brain. And even though this is a huge benefit, in my opinion, there's also kind of a drawback when you think about the flip side of this. The fact that I was stimulated every day, I was feeling really good doing mundane and boring tasks for, my job or other things in my personal life. Whereas now, those things are kind of back to being mundane and not really fun. And, that's just a little drawback of what I think is a huge benefit. But, it definitely is a consideration to have if you work in a job that you don't actually really like or don't feel passionate about. But in my opinion, I choose to see that as a benefit and maybe, something to think about when considering my career instead of a drawback in terms of, the fact that I'm not enjoying these boring things as much anymore. So I know I just rambled a little bit, but to kind of summarize what I was just talking about and sort of the whole motivation for this video, it's the fact that, when I quit caffeine, and this is all personal experience, your experience may vary, but I feel like I rediscovered a lot of the passions that I used to have and really felt motivated to go after those passions and to do things that give me energy naturally, rather than wasting my time on things that I don't really love to do and that I don't really see a lot of value in terms of giving me energy and being things that I want to be known for and do day to day. So I think that's the biggest benefit of quitting caffeine that I've seen so far. I've also seen other benefits like having, improved sleep, especially in the first month. I would have crazy vivid dreams, which I feel like is a good sign that you're getting good sleep. And the fact that I don't really have too much of an energy crash around 2 p.m., 3 p.m. anymore. I definitely had that for the first 3 months, and it was pretty brutal because I couldn't go to coffee or caffeine to alleviate that. But now it's getting a lot better, so that's definitely a big benefit as well. But in my opinion, those kind of pale in terms of the benefit to me as to rediscovering my passions and figuring out what I want to do. So with that said, I hope you really enjoyed this video and you learned something about quitting caffeine or figured out a new benefit of quitting caffeine, which I really hope you did. I try to be original in these videos. I don't watch a lot of other quitting caffeine videos to see what they're saying. But I know when I was quitting in the first month, I was watching a lot of those videos to figure out, how do I get over these withdrawal symptoms and when will I feel normal again? But in my opinion, this has been a super worthwhile journey I'm excited to see where this goes, to be 6 months caffeine free, a year caffeine free. And if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to my channel. Drop a comment down in the comments telling me what you learned or what you liked. Or maybe, give me a video suggestion for what you want to see next. And make sure you like this video. I'll be posting here on this channel more, talking about caffeine and potentially other subjects. I hope you enjoyed, and see you in the next one.